Such a beautiful day in Sydney, and I'm studying about firewalls. But I hope I'm making sense and it's been productive. We'll take a break at around 12:10, and then you can go for a walk, enjoy the weather a bit. And I don't know how it's in Melbourne or New Zealand or wherever you're joining from, but it's always good to have that mid lunch walks. Okay. Uh, Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about that in detail, but I'll quickly show you. It's a part of another course. I can keep talking about it, but then we have to stick to the contents of this course. Otherwise, I won't be able to finish in time. I love talking about networking, but I have to stop somewhere. But I'll show it to you quickly and I'll give you some talks. Lincoln says it's cold in Melbourne, which is not surprising. My partner is from Melbourne, and she wants us to go back all the time. Apparently, the coffee is much better. Okay, alright. I'll just do a quick revision first before sunny in Auckland. Auckland is beautiful. I was in Auckland just, I think, 3, 4 months back. It's one of the most beautiful cities I've seen. It's just amazing. So much cleaner and nicer. And, and we did go to Wellington. So we drove from Auckland to Wellington. Oh God, Wellington weather is so unpredictable. And it's called the windy Wellington, and I know now why it's so. And Bangalore is beautiful. Okay. Alright. Let's get back and let's do some quick revision. So we started with defense in depth, and where we talked about Tom Cruise and how Tom Cruise was going to hack into the network, and we discussed about how at each layer security is important and how you want to harden security at each layer. So yesterday we talked about identity. Then we moved on to perimeter, which is firewall. We talked about DDoS a bit. Then we talked about Azure Firewall, which we'll do a quick revision. As we go through the day, we'll talk about inter-VNet traffic, so NSGs and ASGs. So it's basically for isolating your workloads if you want to do it, or isolating a particular virtual machine or subnets. You can do that using NSG and ASG. And then end of the day, if time permits, we'll talk about container security and host security. But if we are too overburdened and if it's too much, we'll we'll see how we go. Tomorrow we'll talk about applications and data and Azure Key Vault and everything in detail. And on the last day, we'll talk about monitoring. So we talked about why defense in depth is so important and why why we want to harden every aspect of every layer. Even if you miss one thing, your network is at risk. We all know what happened in Australia 3, 4 months ago. Many companies were under attack, one after the other, one after the other. And if and I don't want to name names, but it does affect the company a lot. Okay. Then we talked about how a virtual network looks like. I hope you've taken screenshots. We saw that how hybrid cloud is, what subnetting is, how we can define our network on the cloud. We discussed that we can connect it using either VPNs or express routes. Then we talked about DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks is basically a denial of service where an attacker targets basically a target by from number of legitimate IPs, and it overwhelms the port in such a way that basically disrupts the availability of the target. So a legitimate user, which is me, who is the employee of that company, cannot access those devices. So to stop it, you have Azure DDoS protection. It comes into SKUs, and this is new. This is new. Earlier, the SKUs were different. For those who know, this is new. So it is an IP protection and network protection. Network protection will protect the entire virtual network, and it covers up to 100 public IPs. DDoS protection is just for one IP. So if you just have one IP, one public IP service in your network, don't use DDoS network protection. It's 30 times more 20 times more expensive. Okay. Then we talked about Azure firewalls. and we discussed the fact that how we have our Azure firewall setup. So we have a central VNet. We have a central VNet, which is also known as the hub VNet. So this is a hub VNet. All the traffic from on-prem comes to this hub VNet before it goes to Spoke. And from Spoke also, it goes to hub and then it talks to other spokes. We discussed the fact that you can do application level filtering, you can do network level filtering, you can do FQDN tags, you can do NATing, both inbound and outbound. But to start with an Azure firewall, you need a separate Azure firewall subnet. How big should we have this subnet? How big should we have this subnet for? How big should this subnet be? Is it slash? Yeah, slash 26. So thank you, Yao. So it should be a slash 26. It's important not only from just an exam perspective, but also when you're deploying, because calculating the IPs beforehand will help you designing your network. For those solution architects, you know what I'm talking about. You also need a public IP address. Because it's internet facing, so you need a public IP address before it talks to the internet. Okay. Then we talked about the fact that Azure Firewall comes in two SKUs, standard and firewall premium. Let me show this to you on the portal, because that time we were creating the firewall. I think our firewall should be ready by now. There we go. So this firewall is ready. So this is how a firewall looks like. So you have your rules under the policy here. So this is my public IP. This is my public IP. My firewall's public IP. This is my private IP. Or if I want the traffic to go via the firewall, any sort of traffic, I'll create a route table, create a route, and point next hop towards my private IP, which is this IP. If you want to access this firewall from public, this is my public IP address. So you can do it via public IP address. This firewall is governed by this firewall policy. So I'm just going to click on this policy first. So if I look at this policy, you can create rules on this policy. So you have application layer rules, which is layer 7. So you create a rule collection. So rule collection is application, and for example, 100 and 120. Now, priority is very, very important when it comes to firewall. Lower the number, higher the priority. Lower the number, higher the priority. So be very careful how you create your rules. Lower the number, higher the priority. Lower the number, higher the priority. So I can create rules like this. Now, for example, my aim is I don't want Amir to access YouTube. Amir should not access YouTube, and rest everyone should access YouTube. So let's create a rule like that. So Amir deny, rest everyone allow. So you help me now to create this rule. So I'm creating a priority 120. I'm saying deny Amir, and I'm saying name of this rule, deny Amir. IP address, source is going to be my IP, so 192.168.1.1. Protocol is going to be, what is the protocol going to be when I'm denying to YouTube? Any idea? What is the protocol? We use HTTP or HTTPS. So you can deny both of them. Generally, it uses HTTPS. You can enable TLS inspection if required, or up to you how you want to do it. Now, destination type, I can do FQDN directly, and I say youtube.com. Deny Amir. All right, so I'm gonna add this rule. Now, what's this gonna do is As anytime, if I've done my routing correctly, if all the traffic from that Amaze network is first going through the firewall, I will have deny traffic. So Amaze traffic will be denied. It takes a couple of seconds to come up. So now you can see 120 Ame deny source this to youtube.com. Okay. Now I have to add everyone else. So I'm going to allow everyone else. So I'm going to give it a name. What should be my priority now? Now this is important. I have to allow everyone else. So what should be my priority? Should it be less than 120 or should it be more than 120? The earlier rule that I've created is 120 deny Ame to access YouTube. Okay, so Jan says less than. What about others? Okay, all right. I'll go with that. So I'll say allow Ame. So I'll just say application. I'll say priority 130 because Jan says 130. Now let's see what happens. So I'll say allow everyone. So when I say allow everyone, I can just say start. That means allow everyone. Protocol HTTPS again. And allow, what is it? Allow to youtube.com. Sorry, I'll keep it lower. What did Jan say? Lower. Okay, so if you said lower, 110 for example, and I am going to add this rule. Now I said lower the rule. Oh, what happened? Still updating from the previous this. Sorry, my bad. Oh, forget it. If I create another rule which says 110, allow everyone. It just on the back end, the process for this rule is still going. So allow everyone source star protocol same HTTPS destination youtube.com. Sorry, I'll just use a smaller pen. YouTube. And allow. Now what's going to happen? If I create this rule with 110, allow everyone. I said lower the priority. That means this rule will be evaluated first. So what's going to happen now? Will Ame be able to access YouTube or not? Will Ame be able to access YouTube or not? It will allow me to. Yes, because this rule is getting higher priority because it's lower. So please make sure you write your rules properly. All the specific rules should be on the top. All the specific rules should be on the top, and all the catch-all rules should be on higher or below this. So allow everyone to access. So for example, I had this instead of this. I now have a rule which says 200, and pretty much everything stays the same. In this case, will Ame get access? Will Ame get access now? No. So this is how rules play an important role. So does that make sense? It's very important from a firewall perspective. Very, very important from a firewall perspective. Does that make sense? Can I get a yes from everyone? Because I won't go further if this concept is not clear. All good? Can you give me a quick thumbs up? Amber says yes. What about others? Okay. So make sure your rule priority is proper. Exactly. Now I've made an explicit rule and then a catch-all policy to allow. Anything you feel like. Just be very careful with the numbers you take. Because as your network keeps expanding and your architecture keeps growing, you would want more specific rules. You would want more and more specific rules. So as John is mentioning, absolutely right. All the catch-all rules should be as low as possible. 900, 900 is a better practice. Catch-all rules should be as low as possible, so you can add explicit rules later when the requirement comes. Otherwise, it's a mess. It's a mess otherwise, because you'll have to delete this rule, create a new rule. You don't want to do it. You expose your world, your internet at risk. So just like application rules, you can create network rules as well. So this was application rules, and then you can create network rules as well. So network rules are exactly the same, but now it's basically L3. So I can have my destination type as IP address. So if I want to block Ame, I have to use IP address. Sorry, 192.168.1, and I'll have to type an IP address. So whatever protocol 443 IP address. Now I have to put YouTube's IP address. So you can do it at layer 3 also. One quick one quick note that network rules take precedence over application rules regardless of the priority. Very important again. Network rules take precedence over application rules regardless the priority of the application. So first, all the network rules will be evaluated, then all the application rules will be evaluated. So be very careful about that. First, the network rules will be evaluated one by one, one by one. Wherever there's a match, it will allow or deny. Then the application rules will be allowed. So be very careful. When it's premium, you can do thread TLS inspection. So you can do TLS inspection if required, IDPS if required, where it looks for some particular signatures. If it finds those signature, it will either you will start either receiving alerts, or you can select alert and deny. So it will basically start denying that particular signature as well. Okay, you can also have web categories. So if you put, for example, youtube.com, so you can block the whole category completely. So I think this should be, so youtube.com is in streaming category. So if I want all of the company to stop streaming media and downloads or social networking, I can block the category in itself. So I can go to my application rule and block the category in itself. So I can go to the, just edit this rule. So instead of FQDN, I can stop the whole web category. For example, gambling or dating or hacking, whatever. So you can stop this completely. So you can stop a web category completely. It's pretty much it. Explicit proxy is still in review. You have DNAT rules as well. So DNAT rules, if you want to do any DNATing, you have DNAT rules as well. If there is any parent policy coming from the firewall manager, you can control that as well. Okay, so this is firewalls. Then we discuss firewall manager, which is basically used to manage all the firewalls in your network. You can require, John is asking, can I create custom categories? I'll have to check on that. I'll request Bhaskar, if you're there, to just have a quick look. Okay, so using Firewall Manager, I can basically start pushing policies at a global level. So if I have 10 firewalls, I can create a parent policy and start pushing it on all the Azure firewalls. So I'll start pushing it on all the Azure firewalls. So I can create that. I can also create virtual hub. Parent policy will take precedence, Prayesh. First, parent policy. So whatever I'm pushing through Firewall Manager will take precedence. Good question. Love it. You can create secure virtual hubs. So basically, remember virtual hubs like from your AZ-104? So you can create secure virtual hubs as well. These are a little bit better than your normal ones. Okay, all right. That's about firewalls, and then and firewall manager, and then we saw how is hub and spoke topology. We saw like all the traffic first comes to the hub, and then it goes to the spoke. Srinivas, you're right. So then it goes to the spoke. Then we discussed how UDR works. Then we discussed how UDR works. We're like, we want everything to go via the firewall. We want everything to go via the firewall. So we said that, hey, if that is the concept, we need some sort of UDR. So if all the traffic will go via the hub VNet, which has the firewall, I need to do some sort of routing, which is also known as UDR or custom routing. What is UDR? User defined routes. How is it different? By default, there are system routes in place. So whenever I do any VNet peering, they will automatically start talking to each other using system defined routes. But they are only talking between each other. They're not talking between one spoke to another spoke. For this, we need to do UDR. And how do we do UDR? Can anyone tell me how do we do UDR? Just a quick one, not in detail. I'm not going to go there. How do we do UDR? Or user defined routes? How do we start? 3 steps, remember? I'll wait for a minute because this is important. Create route tables, route and assign it as well. Route tables and assign it as well using destination hop. And don't forget the reverse route. Don't forget the reverse route as well. Okay. Amber, it's going to be the firewall manager will take precedence. It will define the pairing policy. Okay. Now, the last concept when it comes to firewalls is post tunneling. Now, what some companies do is they buy big firewalls on prem. So they buy these big firewalls on prem, which can be a big FortiGate or a big Palo Alto or a big Cisco device. And they have invested so much money on a big firewall on prem. So what they want is, and they have a hybrid setup. The hybrid setup is connected via a VPN. The hybrid setup is connected via a VPN. So front end will directly talk to the internet, but they want that the back end, before it goes to the internet, it should go via on-prem. So they have this VPN connected. So you tell me, what should we do? You know now everything. You tell me what will happen. Srinivas, I'll just come to that question. Just a minute. Exactly. So we have this backend network. And we want that, and we have the site-to-site VPN up and running. So we have this site-to-site VPN up and running, and we want that, hey, don't go to the firewall or don't directly go to the internet. Instead, go to the on-prem first. Go to the on-prem Cisco device first. So what do we do? As Ha mentioned, so for example, this on-prem Cisco device is 1.1.1.1, for example. So what do? We create, what do we create? What do we create? We leverage the power of, if I want to manipulate traffic, what do? Come on, I know you know. So we leverage the power of route table. So we create a route table and we create a route saying all the traffic which is supposed to go to the internet, we create this route that all the traffic which is destination internet or a default route, next hop will be the Cisco device. Which is on-prem. And because you have connected it using VPN, it's accessible. This next hop is accessible. So you push it to your firewall, 1.1.1. Exactly right. So you push all the traffic to 1.1.1. Exactly right. And this doesn't do the job. Actually, we need to do something else along with that. We need to associate this route table to backend and make tier. So you can associate the route table to any number of subnets. So you need to associate or attach this route table with it. Okay. All right. I think Bhaskar has answered your question. Global policy will always be pushed to regional policies as well. There's a sort of SKU and costing parameters that come in picture, but I'll give you a link regarding that soon. All right. Now, before going forward, and you tell me, how are you feeling with stuff now? Is everything now making sense? Is it all coming together? Is it like, is it all making sense? Are you like super excited, or are you still somewhat at the minute? Okay. All right. The important bit is we're learning out of it. So if you're learning, I can sleep better. Okay. All right. Next topic is NSG. Thank you, Moses. Good answer. Some chats do come late. I don't know why Teams works like that, but good answer. All right. So the next topic we'll talk about NSG, ASG. I know someone had some doubts. We'll talk about service endpoints and private endpoints, and then we'll call it a break. So we'll push on till 12:15, and then we'll go for a big break. I hope that's okay with everyone. So we'll have a 15-minute breaks, but at 12:15. Then we come back, then we talk about everything else. Okay. All right. Now, what is NSG? Anyone? We discussed about this. Where did you see NSG before this? Anyone? Where do we use NSG? What is an NSG? What is the first thing that comes to your mind when creating virtual machines? Okay, that's good. So we have a VNet, we have some subnets, mini firewall. I love that. Is that Srinivas, you're killing it. It's like a mini firewall. It's not a virtual firewall, it's like a mini firewall. Don't call it a firewall, call it a filter. I like when we call it a filter. It's basically a filter which is used to filter traffic. Okay. Now, for example, this subnet has a couple of VMs, VM1, VM2. And for example, this is Sazori. Now, NSG is like a mini firewall, but where do we use it? We use it within our virtual network. So it's used to filter the traffic within our virtual machine. So NSG is a filter to filter the traffic then NSG. NSG is not more than inter-VLAN routing. You can imagine this as a ACL, which we used to configure on Cisco. So it's exactly like an ACL, the access control list. You can do both standard extended. I'm old school. Okay. All right. Now NSG used to filter the traffic within the virtual network. So at the perimeter level, which is facing towards the internet, it's firewall. It's like a big filter, but within the VNet, we have this concept of NSG. And for those who are coming from AWS, you also have the same thing. I think web security groups or something. I forgot AWS a little bit, but yeah. So we are now filtering traffic within the subnet. Okay, now our aim is basically to stop VM3 to talk my spellings. Stop VM3 to talking to VM for example. So aim is to stop VM3 to communicate with VM2. So what we do is we create an network security group, which is exactly like the firewall. It again has the same uh, priority list. So we create this rule and we say deny 192.168.1.1 to destination 192.168.2.1. Okay, so we create this rule. So this network security has inbound rules and outbound rules. Yes, exactly, John. So this network security group has inbound rules and outbound rules. You can leverage any one of them, inbound, outbound, whichever. So network security groups. So you create inbound rule or outbound rule. So I'll create an outbound rule saying deny traffic from this to this. I'll have to put a priority. Up to you. I'm not concerned about the port. You can use a port, but I just want to stop entire communication. If you want to stop a particular sort of traffic like 443 traffic or any 22 traffic, you can stop that. But I'm just all the communication I want to stop. Yeah, exactly. Now, I create this network security group. I go to my portal, Azure portal, and I create this network security group and I write this. Is that going to do the job? No. I need to associate this network security group to either the whole subnet, or I can associate it to my virtual machine NIC as well. Up to you. There is no right or wrong. It's all up to you. So I can associate this NSG at a subnet level, or I can associate it at a virtual machine NIC level. So I can associate at a subnet level or a NIC level. I can do it whatever I want. Does that make sense? Am I on the right track? Is it all making sense? So I can deny it. I create that deny rule and I attach it either to the subnet, or I can attach it to the NIC. All right. Now let me just show this to you on the portal. So let's imagine the same thing. Our aim is exactly the same. This is our aim. We are going to create a network security group and going to deny this virtual machine to talk to this virtual machine in another subnet. So let's create this rule. So where do I go? I go on network security group. So if you click on network security, you can create a network security group on the fly, put it on a resource group, and just create it on the fly. So I'm a NSG test. Probably need to delete my couple of network security groups. Okay. I can see some questions in the chat. I'll just come to them. I think Bhaskar is replying. NSG is not going to filter between VNets. No. Traffic that exits VNet, your firewall should filter it. But if you want to limit, you can limit it at an NSG level, but not from VNet to VNet. Okay, so where was the network security group? Go to my resource, and this is my network security group. So I've created this. I'm a NSG test and inbound security rules. So by default, there are inbound security rules by there. I cannot create them. I cannot delete them. So by default, there are 65,000 priority from any VNet, any port to any virtual network. Inbound traffic is allowed to any load balancer, to any destination traffic is allowed, and delay all input. So these are already there. I didn't create them. I can't delete them. They are already there. They are already there. Now, if I want to add my rule, I'll have to go with my priority. So my aim was to deny traffic from one source. It can be an IP address. So I'll just say 192.168.1.1 to the destination 190. I can choose the port if you want. I can make it star if you want. It's all up to you how you want to do it. And I can allow or deny traffic. I can choose the protocol which I want. If you want to deny specific traffic, you can choose that as well. So I want to block pings at the minute, and I'll say deny. And the priority comes into picture. Again, the concept remains the same. Lower the number or lower the priority number, higher the priority, the better the first it will be evaluated. Okay, so I have created this rule which says from this source to this destination is denied. Does that do the job? What should be my next step? What should be my next step? What should be my next step? No, I've created this rule. I don't want to allow anything. I've created this network security group. What should be my next step? Just discuss this. Associate. So just creating this filter is not going to do anything. We need to associate this filter either at a NIC level, so I can associate it with that particular virtual machine. So with that particular virtual machine, or I can associate it at a subnet level. So I can associate it at a subnet level. So I go to that particular subnet and I can associate it at a subnet level. It's all up to you how you want to do it. It's all up to you. There's no right and wrong. You are the architect and you define how you want things. So you can associate it at a NIC level or you can associate it at a subnet level. We all have common sense and I know what you're thinking. So if I just go back to my diagram. So you can associate at a subnet level or at a NIC level. Up to you. How you want to do it. If you want to block the whole subnet, you can do it at a whole subnet level. If you want to block just the particular virtual machine from talking, you do it at a virtual machine level. Any questions? Any questions? I'll wait because this is super important. Come on, you should have one question. I know what you're thinking. Just speak it out loud. Okay, if you don't have a question, then I have a question. If you don't have a question, then I have a question, and let me know if this makes sense. All right. Now, my aim, I'll just recreate this again. My aim is I have two subnets, and I have a virtual machine here, virtual machine here, and 192.1.1 and 2.1 subnet. Okay. Now, I create and my aim is 1.1 should not talk to 2.1. 1.1 should not talk to 2.1. So I create an NSG and I create a rule on this NSG with priority of say 200 saying 1.1 source from source 1.1 to destination 2.1 deny. And I take this NSG and I apply it at a virtual machine NIC level. So I apply it to the VM NIC level. And I also create an NSG2, and I say in this NSG, allow star source everything, source star to destination star. And I take this and I apply it, this NSG at a subnet level. Now, my question to you is, one NSG is saying deny, one NSG is saying allow, one is applied at a NIC level, another one is applied at a subnet level. Priority is 130, for example. By the way, priority doesn't matter in this case. So, what will happen? Will it talk or will it deny? What will get preference? Who will get preference? Who will get preference? Deny, deny, no preferences. Okay. Now the thing is, there is no preference. There is no preference. In this scenario, there is no preference. It should be allowed at both the ends. It should be allowed at both ends. Even if it's denied at one end, allowed at both stages. Even if it's even if it's denied at one, it will stop working. So it's very important, very, very important. So even if it's denied at one end, it won't work. And there is no priority that comes into picture, by the way. The priority here doesn't come into picture. The priority will just help you to decide which rule will come in that NSG. Priority doesn't come into picture when priority is internal to that NSG. So if there is a priority here, suppose say a priority 300 saying allow all. So priority is only used to choose which one would be selected. Priority is only used to select which one would be selected. That's it. That's the only purpose of priority within that NSG. So the outcome of the NSG is deny because 200 is denying at the minute. The outcome of this NSG is allow. But because it's allow and deny, it will be deny. Or deny will get precedence over allow conditions. Exactly right. So none of the NSGs get preference. It's basically should be allowed at both ends. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Yes? No? Yes? Yes? Yes, only allow and allow will be allowed. You can apply it at a NIC level also. You can apply it at a subnet level also. It's all up to you how you want to do it. But if this is the condition, then there is no preference. Okay, if this is the scenario and I want to troubleshoot it, if I want to troubleshoot it, where do I look at it? What is getting applied? What is not getting applied? I want to troubleshoot stuff. It'll make my head go blast because I don't know where I should look at stuff. So if you want to look what is applied to that particular virtual machine and you want to troubleshoot stuff, go on that virtual machine. So click on that virtual machine, go on the networking. You can go on the watcher also. Go on the networking, go on the NIC, go on the NIC of that virtual machine and look at effective security rules. So look at effective, I think this virtual machine is not up and running. You just turn it up. So if you want to look at it, go on the NIC and down below you will look at effective security rules. So once this virtual machine gets turned on, you can start looking at which NSGs are associated with this NIC. At this minute, both what I've configured is both the NSGs should be associated, but I think it'll turn up and it'll show you. So if you want to troubleshoot virtual machine, networking and NIC, you can also do it from the network watcher also. Okay. Sure. Jan, all good with me. Okay. So if you want to troubleshoot what is getting preferred or where it is getting denied, you will have to look at the net effective security rules. So very important. I'll come back to this once it's up and running. Okay, now concept, another concept. What if, and they all belong to the same VNet, obviously. What if I have a scenario like this where I have one virtual machine here and I have 4 or 5 virtual machines. I'll just write VM3, VM4, VM5, VM6. I have 4 or 5 virtual machines, and out of these 4 virtual machines, uh, two of them are always going to be used for the same thing. So they cater to the same application. So they cater to the same application. So they cater to the same application. And whenever I want to allow or deny them, I have to do it together. That's that because they are catering to the same application. If I want to create any NSG rules, I either have to deny or allow them always together. So one way of doing things is to write rules and saying, hey, deny virtual machine 3 and deny virtual machine 4. You can also write a rule saying deny VM3, VM4, but you'll have to write the IP addresses of this all the time. All the time you have to write 192.168.1.1, 192.168.1.2. And there are chances that if you create rules like this, you might make a mistake because you're writing IP addresses so many times. So if you want to stop it, then we have a concept of application security group, which is nothing but just grouping of virtual machines, so they can be allowed or denied together on NSG rules. So you can group these virtual machines together so they can be allowed or denied together. And you are like, hey, Ame, I know I can create rules and I can deny them on the same rule, I can deny them on separate rules, but one, if you have a lot of config, you can make mistakes. And second, if you want to have a lot of config, try to make it as clean as possible. So you can make it as clean as possible. So if these 2 virtual machines are catering to the same application and they need to be allowed or denied or always together, then instead of writing the IP address each and every time, put them in an application security group and deny or allow them together. Does that make sense? Or does that not make sense? Someone asked me about ASG long time back. Forgot the name. I don't know if it was Sean, I guess, or does that make sense? Yes, it's all good. No, not Azure AD. This is all networking. I'll just quickly show it to you. So if if I want to put it, so if I want to add this virtual machine into, for example, ASG1, so I create an ASG test, for example. So I first create an application security group. Application security. Yes, it's an Azure service. Application security group. So I create this application security group. Resource group name, review and create. So I create this, and then I can start associating my virtual machine to this application security group. So I can go on my virtual machine and say, hey, you are part of application security group test. Let me show it to you. It's pretty fascinating. I think it's gonna take time. Forget it. I think I have one ready for you. So let's use this one. I'm a ASG1. So if I want any virtual machine to be part of this ASG1, if I had a coin and every time someone said that, its application security group is used to basic. So this is ready now. So if I want to associate my virtual machine 3 with ASG, I go to virtual machine. So I go to my virtual machine, go to my networking, and go to my application security. So I'm a virtual machine, networking, and application security group. So I now make it part of ASG test 1. That's how easy it is, and save it. So now it's part of ASG test 1. ASG versus, there is no, I'll just show you, there is no conflict here. Now, for example, this virtual machine is now part of ASG test 1. Now the beauty is when I create my NSG, so when I create my NSG, for example, this NSG, so now when I'm creating NSG, when I create a rule, I can basically deny or allow them together. So instead of choosing an IP address, I can choose an application security group, which is basically VM3 and VM4 together. So from VM3 to VM4, if I want to deny something, I can just say deny it. That's pretty much it. Does that make sense? It's not comparing. It's using application security group as a source in my NSG. So when I create my NSG rules, instead of saying VM1 and VM3 and VM4, I just said ASG test, which is basically the group of virtual machines. Does that make sense, Richard? Exactly, John. Exactly. Just saves a lot of work. Not just a lot of work, makes your config cleaner. Troubleshooting becomes easier, and you don't make any manual mistakes. You can write the IP address every time 1.1, 1.2, so you don't want to do that again and again. Richard, does that make sense? Are you with me? So I am just okay, perfect. All right, okay. So that's pretty much about NSGs and ASGs. Any doubts regarding two concepts, ASG and NSG? Any doubts regarding NSG and ASG? So NSG is just a filter. I can apply it either at a subnet level or I can apply it either at a NIC level. If I want to troubleshoot, where do I go? I go to my virtual machine, I go to my NIC or go to my network watcher or to my network watcher or to my NIC, and I go to effective security rules, and I can see which NSGs are associated. One will be at a subnet level, one will be at a network level, a NIC level. An application security group is basically bringing them together. So if you now see in effective security rules, I have two NSGs. One is at a subnet level and one is at a NIC level. So you have two NSGs associated, one at a network interface level, one at a subnet level. So if I want to troubleshoot, I'll just look at here and see what's basically happening. Okay. All right. Next topic, I'm gonna take a quick word. I know it's 12 or 10. Do you want to come back and do it, or do you want to go for a big break? What do you want to do? Just a democracy. Next topic is service endpoint. Lunch. Okay. All right. Okay. Lunch break. Go. So next topic is service endpoints, and when we come back from lunch, we'll discuss about it. Everyone else on the same page? Any doubts? I'm gonna stay back here and ask if you have any doubts. Exactly, Srinivas. Exactly. ASGs can't be used independently. They have to be used alongside NSGs. You are absolutely spot on. Okay. When we come back, we'll talk about service endpoints and load balancers a little bit, and then talk about express routes, and then go to host. Okay, all right. Any questions for me before we go on our break? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Yes, go for it, huh? It's a big one. Okay, all right. I'm ready. You can come off mute and discuss it. That's fine. No. That is the next topic. That is the next topic. So let's discuss when everyone is back. So we come back at 1 o'clock and then we'll discuss it. I will 100% explain that. Okay. That's the next topic. Unfortunately, Coconut, I won't be sharing the training material, but if you want, take a screenshot every time we do something, is what I would recommend. Okay. All right. Okay. See you after a quick lunch. Don't have a heavy one. Or if you have a heavy one, have a coffee after that. See you soon. All right.